Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Millspouse Coffee House. This is just Britni today, and I am speaking with Mark Steffe, who's President and CEO of First Command. Hey, Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm so good. It's Thursday and almost the end of the week, so I am good. I'm good. But you're here today to talk about how to get your finances straight during COVID-19. And I hear you've got some good advice for us. Um, Things are really weird right now, so this is a perfect time to start thinking finance for ourselves and our family. So, Mark, why is now a good time to start thinking about personal finance goals for the family?
That's a great question. And you probably haven't given a lot of thought to the idea of implementing a financial plan over these last few months with COVID and all the distractions that can come with that. But at First Command, we believe this is an excellent time to focus on getting your finances in order. Many of us are taking time during the pandemic to evaluate what is important in our lives. In some ways it has slowed down. We seem to be getting more time with our families, which might be, a silver lining that's come with this mess. We're all clearly looking for better, more positive days ahead, the things we can do with our families, the things we want to achieve over time, the financial goals we might have. And so for us, we think this is a really good time to sit down as things have slowed down, where you can really spend some time with your spouse or significant other and really think through what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I think one of the things that's resonated with our clients the most, when so many things that currently feel out of control, that COVID has taken over and we're almost reactive in so many different ways, that being able to proactively sit down and feel like you've got a little bit more control over your life or your financial future and feel more empowered by kind of taking that control. I think even psychologically that's having a big benefit for a lot of our clients as well.
Yeah, yeah. Being a military spouse for me, I am a control freak, and I always tell people that I probably shouldn't have become a military spouse because there's like absolutely nothing that I can control.
Right, right.
So, so that's great to know. Yeah. But I want our listeners, to understand that this is really important. And before you tune us out and think that financial planners only exist for the super wealthy, it's free. It's free with First Command. Mark, we understand there's no cost for financial planning for active duty military families. That's correct, right?
That is absolutely correct, and I'm glad you brought that up right from the beginning because I don't think a lot of people, at first want to believe that, or, I think the average American and certainly our folks in the military think that financial planning is just a high-end service. It's probably only available to the wealthy, and they certainly don't think it's available to them. And if they thought for a moment that it was, the next thought is, well, if it's available, I probably can't afford it. It's probably so expensive, it's going to price me right out of it. But that's definitely not true at First Command. We are totally committed to serving the financial needs of our nation's active duty military families. We're fully aware that the best way to get started, the best way to get financially squared away is through a financial plan. We know that the earlier in your career you get started, the better chance you have of getting on a path to financial security because time is your biggest asset. And what we wanted to do was to take cost right off the table. We wanted to remove any what we would call barriers to entry, or in other words, we wanted to eliminate any reason a military family wouldn't seek out a financial plan and work to get them on a path to financial security. So if you belong to an active duty military family, you simply don't pay for financial planning services at First Command. And we know that with that complimentary financial plan, you can get started now on reducing debt or protecting your family, building wealth, and frankly, just putting yourself on a path to achieving your lifetime financial goals and dreams. And the way I always like to summarize it is just simply put, it is available and you can absolutely afford it because for most people, free is right in their price range.
Oh, absolutely. Free is great. Free is great. Yeah, and we actually have financial planning is something that it does sound really scary, guys. And so First Command is the perfect place to go to get started doing that, especially if it's free. You cannot pass that up. So Mark, can you tell us how does the financial planning process start?
Yeah, I'm going to start with maybe the second meeting. The first meeting is much more informal, and maybe we can circle back to that in a minute
Okay.
because tying right into and how it works when it's time to sit down with a financial advisor. Usually that first in-depth meeting takes place in an advisor's office. Nowadays, we've been doing a lot of them, as you would expect, virtually, like many folks are. So
Right.
whether it's in person or over the computer, we can do it either way. But that first meeting is going to take about 2 hours, and the advisor is going to spend a lot of time getting to know the family, the military member, his or her spouse, understanding where they are currently in their life, what it is they're trying to achieve over the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
And so really understand what your current situation is and what your long-term goals and dreams are. And it's through that process that we really start, that becomes the foundation for the financial plan. And through that meeting, we're going to explain to you how we work and what our approach is, and the analysis we're going to do on your current situation and the work we're going to do to help come back with a set of recommendations for what you need to do to get from point A to point B. And so we talked earlier, that none of that, there's no cost, no obligation for that first, just call it a 2-hour meeting. Might be a little bit shorter, it might be a little bit longer. And through that whole discussion, it's at the end of that discussion when the military member and the spouse would say, you know what, that really makes great sense to me. Let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't make sense to them, they can walk away, as we said, no cost, no obligation. But if the family says, you know what, this really makes sense, let's move on to the next step, they would leave, and then the advisor would go to work on actually constructing that financial plan for the family. And assuming that, so they would build that, and think of the financial plan as a roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was going to drive from my home to some place I'd never been before, the first thing I'm probably going to do is pull up Waze or maps on my phone and ask it to build me a map from point A to point B. That's
Right.
what your financial plan is. It's your map from point A to point B. And we've all been following that map at some point in our lives, and suddenly there's road construction or an unexpected traffic jam or something. Well, guess what? I need to make a quick detour to get around this and then back onto my plan. That's the process we follow. It's not going to go smoothly, every day for the next 20 years. We're going to have to stay attuned to what's going on, make adjustments along the way, but ultimately that plan is designed to get you, where you want to go, 10 or 20 years from now.
Awesome.
So that plan will be built. The family will come back. The spouse or the significant other will come back with the military member. And then the advisor will present the set of recommendations to the family.
Mm-hmm.
And assuming that everyone agrees with those set of recommendations, we'll implement those recommendations. And at that point, the appropriate fees or commissions, whatever, however we've implemented that plan, that's when the appropriate fees or commissions would be charged, but not until that point.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yes, it's very clear. I think it's a great process, and this is something that I wish, my husband's close to retirement, but we wish that we would have done this a long time ago because we're having to play catch up now. So,
Yep.
so yeah, it seems like a very clear plan. It's straightforward. I think it sounds great. Okay, so do you
And
have?
could
Sure,
I add something to that? So then
absolutely.
you've implemented that plan. Then the idea, just like we talked about with the roadmap from A to B, you want to check in with it periodically to make sure you're still on track. So that might be every 6 months, it might be once a year, but you would continue to meet with your financial advisor over time to ensure you're still on the right path and to make the necessary adjustments along the way. And what's I think especially important for our military families is, as you said, I've seen on your podcast, military families move every 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And First Command's got roughly 180 offices around the world. The vast majority of them are near a military installation. So when the family PCSs to a new location, we actually transfer that plan, that family's profile, to a local advisor near the new installation, so that personal face-to-face coaching can continue even though the family has moved to a new location. And we do that throughout the life of the relationship with First Command. And hopefully that goes not only through their military career, but to and through their ultimate retirement from maybe their second career as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's one less thing to worry about when you PCS, because we just did that, and there's an endless amount of things that you
Yeah.
have to do. So that's wonderful that you have all of those locations and can accommodate all of the moves that we do. So that's really great. Um, okay, so do you have any tips on how to budget with your spouse? I know money is always a touchy subject. I know with me, I'm more of the spender in my relationship. So
There's
do
always
you,
one. There's
right?
always one, Brittany.
That's me. That's me. So, what tips do you have on budgeting?
Again, this might be maybe a second benefit of COVID where, again, things have slowed down. We've got the time now to sit together as a family or as a husband and wife or a military member and a significant other to really sit down and get a feel for what our budget is. What are we spending every month? And these days, a lot of those expenses we don't have as much anymore. We're not driving as much anymore. We're not going to the movies. We're not going out to eat as much. So our entertainment costs and lots of other costs have come down. And it's a great opportunity to do what I often recommend is pull out a bank statement or a debit card statement or a credit card statement from last month. And if you keep them or you can pull them up, go back a year ago and compare what were we spending 12 months ago compared to what we're spending now. And you might be surprised, one, by how many things you're not still spending money on. You also might be surprised to find a few things have crept into your budget that weren't there before. But that side-by-side comparison will really give you a better feel of, we've been living with COVID since March. So if we've been able to go without something for 4, 5, 6 months, could we not forego that forever? Could we not
Right.
use that money and do something more productive with it? Could we put it into a savings account? Because as you, I'm sure well know, most families in America, and certainly most military families, don't have very much money set aside for, a new set of tires or if the refrigerator goes out.
Hmm.
So let's set up an emergency fund. So in the event something does happen, and it always happens, eventually, that we've got money set aside so it doesn't, devastate our finances. Or if you know that you've got enough money set aside and you can do without some of these expenses, maybe I put it into, a longer term investment plan. Maybe I put it more money towards our TPS account and maximize the benefit from TPS. So this is a really good opportunity to really sit down, look through those expenses, understand what you're spending the money on, uh, and then find a way to track that on a, sometimes people like to do it weekly. For you, Brittany, you said you're a control freak. Weekly might work for you.
Yeah.
Some others, monthly might be a little bit more, easier to stomach. But then to keep tabs on, are we really holding ourselves accountable to this new budget? Or are we letting these things slip, certain expenses slip back into our budget? But it's amazing. Just a little bit of money here, $100 a month into a mutual fund. If you do that for 10, 20, 30 years, you would be amazed what that can accumulate to over the course of that time period. And
Right.
so sometimes people think, well, geez, it's not very much money. It's only $100. It's only $200. Well, all that adds up over time. So don't get concerned that it doesn't seem like a lot of money, because over time it can accumulate to a significant amount of money for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier about COVID and how we stopped doing certain things during that, a big part of that time frame, and some of us are still not doing a whole lot either. And, still now, we stopped going out, we stopped going to the movies, we stopped doing all that stuff, and I kept looking at my savings account going, oh man, this is great because I'm not going to
Yes.
the movies all the time. My daughter and I aren't going to go, to the zoo all the time. So it actually ended up we saved a lot, and I got to see visually in my bank account why what could
Yeah.
happen if you don't do all those extra things and you don't get the extra coffee at Starbucks. So
Right.
that's a really
Yep.
good point.
Yep.
So absolutely, yeah, saving has always been something that's kind of been hard for me, but it was easy to see during COVID. So that was a really good point.
Yep. And you mentioned your children. This is a great time to teach kids about savings as well.
Yeah.
And it's got to be age appropriate, of course, right? You got to be comfortable, can they understand it given their age, and how much are you willing to share with your kids about your family expenses? But sitting down and what we always try to tell people, the more tangible you can make that discussion with them, the better. So if they're getting an allowance and you can help put a little bit away into a savings account. They can see that accumulate. Um, or maybe the family's trying to decide, should we eliminate this expense or that expense? Maybe it's an either or type of discussion. Pull your kids into it and let them be a part of the discussion so they can see the impact. And then something we did a long time ago, and I'm not sure my kids love this, but it seems to be working pretty well, is, birthday gifts come in, right? And sometimes, grandma or grandpa send them in cash, and sometimes they send it in a check.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal I made with my kids a long time ago was, if it comes in cash, you get to keep it. If it comes in a check, I take it and put it in your savings account.
Oh, that's a
So
great idea.
you know what they're rooting for, right? They want
Well,
the cash, but
right.
and if you're smart, you can call ahead as the parent and reach out to grandma and grandpa and say, this one needs to come in a check. But they come to me now. They open up the birthday card or a Christmas card or something like that. If it's a check, I don't even have to say anything. They just walk over to me and hand me the check. And now with remote deposit that so many banks have, and First Command Bank has, you can just snap a picture of it and they can kind of see that it's going into their account, and you can pull up their account balance right online, and they can see that their account balance just went up, $25 or whatever it is. So to actually let them see that and be a part of that helps them understand that, hey, that money's going to be there for me someday when I need it later.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're in the piggy bank stage right now because I have a 5-year-old.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I get it.
but she likes to see her coins go in the piggy bank, and when grandpa comes to visit, he brings his big bag of coins, and she likes the sound of it in the piggy bank. So
I get it. I still like that. So
yeah,
I
right?
get it.
Well, I have to try the check and the cash thing though. That's a great idea. So I'll definitely do that. All right. So now, Mark, talk to us about what people can expect if they decide to meet with a First Command advisor. You talked a little bit about the steps before, but what is their first meeting like?
Yep, and that's the one I wanted to get back to, because we like to keep that very first interaction with the First Command advisor really informal. A lot of time now, it could be in the office, and now it certainly could be virtually. A lot of times, sort of pre-COVID, it wouldn't be virtual, and it often wouldn't take place in the office. It might just be over lunch or a cup of coffee somewhere. It's really informal, just trying to get to know each other. Is this going to be a good fit? Are you comfortable with me as your potential advisor? Are you going to value the advice I bring to you as a potential client? So it's really kind of a get to know you meeting. We'll explain a little bit about our process and how things work and what to expect, so we can kind of set expectations there. It's really about building a relationship, and we won't ask any personal information there. We're not going to ask for, your income or your social security number or anything like that. It's really just that kind of get to know you meeting, and do we believe this is going to be a good fit? And assuming both the advisor and the potential client, or the spouse or the military member and his or her spouse, come out of there feeling comfortable with it, that would lead to the next meeting. And it was the next meeting that I described earlier. That's when it's going to take place in the office or virtually, where we're going to get to know you and start to build that financial plan. So the meeting I'm talking about right now is the very first one, and that's just a really kind of a relationship building, get to know you sort of meeting.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, okay, so this is my favorite part of, not that everything that everything you've said before is awesome, but this is my favorite part because I have a special place in my heart for companies that hire military spouses, and I understand that First Command does that. So please tell me about that.
Honestly, Brittany, it's one of my favorite parts too, because I see the impact that we can have on military families by hiring military spouses. And we get to see every day the impact our military spouse advisors have on military families. So we think First Command's a great place for military spouses to pursue a long-term career as a financial coach. And it really is that. It's a career, not a job. And again, I had watched I Googled Mill Spouse Coffee House and saw you and Leslie talking about this, and just the rate of unemployment or underemployment, which is something we're really attuned to as well here at First Command, and realizing what a valuable resource it's going, untapped in our military spouses.
Right.
I don't have to tell you or your audience, but such a driven group of folks, people that are dedicated to helping their own families and improving the lives of military families around them. They're knowledgeable clearly about the challenges and opportunities associated with the military life. They've got that firsthand experience. So that obviously comes with a lot of credibility.
Hmm.
Um, Many of the military spouses, far better than the military members themselves, typically understand the pay and benefits better. Um,
Yeah, that's typically true.
right? And let's face it, I think if you ask any military member I speak to, it's the spouse that's making almost all the financial decisions on things.
Right.
So they're used to, they understand the challenges. They're already taxed with making those decisions. So they understand what a military family goes through. They've got the empathy typically and the strong listening skills it takes to be a successful advisor, and that really helps build relationships and again build that trust. And being a financial advisor is like any other business. It's a relationship business. It's a relationship built on trust. And if people know what you're talking about, they trust you, and you've got credibility. It's a great way to build that career.
Yeah.
Uh, I mentioned earlier that of the 180 offices or so that we have, most of them are near military installations. So wherever you are going to live, there's probably a First Command office nearby. And whatever skills and expertise you develop in one First Command office are completely transferable to another First Command office. And so when you PCS, that inevitable PCS comes along and you have to go to a new office, you're not starting, completely over. You've built experience and knowledge, and you can carry that knowledge into the next office, and it makes it a whole lot easier to kind of hit the ground running when you get to the new location.
That's awesome. Yeah, career continuity is something that is something that our community struggles with. So that I love that. I love that piece. So thank
This
you
is a
for thank you for hiring military spouses. That's
Oh,
awesome.
honestly, it's our pleasure, and I think it's a truly a career where you can really do well by doing good, and I think that is so attractive to our military spouses.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I have enjoyed talking with you today. I want to make sure our listeners know where to go to find even more empowering information about creating a financial plan and the careers with First Command. Where do they need to go?
That's an easy one. Go to firstcommand.com, click on Get Started, and you can find a financial coach near you, or you can also learn more about becoming a financial advisor at First Command.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being with us today. We really appreciate your time, and this information is incredible. And I know that will be really, it's really needed in our community. So I really am glad to get this out to our listeners. So thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.